In this lesson, you will learn how to distinguish between reflexive and intensive pronouns. The reflexive and intensive pronouns both take the same form, which is why they can be a little confusing. The first person versions of the pronouns are myself, singular, and ourselves, plural. Second person is yourself, singular, and yourselves, plural. Third person is singular, is itself, himself, herself, and then the plural is themselves. Note that they selves or their selves are not words, only themselves. The reflexive pronoun refers to the subject of a verb. So usually it's going to be the subject of the sentence, be the antecedent of a reflexive pronoun. And a reflexive pronoun always serves another grammatical function. So it refers back to the subject, and it's going to be functioning either as a direct object, an indirect object, a predicate nominative, or the object of a preposition. With reflexive pronouns, the subject and this pronoun must refer to the same person. Otherwise, you're going to need to use a personal pronoun form. So let's take a look at some examples. We're going to look for the reflexive pronouns, draw an arrow from the pronoun to its antecedent. Diners at this restaurant serve themselves. Themselves is the reflexive pronoun. It is functioning, as we've already indicated, as a direct object and refers to diners. Since themselves and diners are talking about the same person, the reflexive form is correct. I made myself a sandwich. Here, myself is functioning as an indirect object. It refers back to I. Since I and myself are referring to the same person, the reflexive form is again correct. Dale is just not himself today. Here, himself is functioning as a predicate nominative following the linking verb is. It refers back to Dale. Dale and himself are both talking about the same person, so the reflexive form is correct. And finally, he suddenly remembered the promise he had made to himself. Here, himself is the object of the preposition to. It refers back to he. Technically, it refers back to this he, but really it could be either one. Since he and himself are referring to the same person, again, this is a reflexive pronoun. Intensive pronouns have only one function, to emphasize the antecedent. You should be able to remove an intensive pronoun without changing the meaning of the sentence because it doesn't serve any other grammatical function. Examples: don't you think we can install the computer program ourselves? Ourselves is the pronoun in question. If I think it might be intensive, I cross it out. Don't you think we can install the computer program? It has the same meaning. In this sentence, all that ourselves does is emphasize the antecedent we. The second example, only you yourself can make that decision. Yourself is again the pronoun in question. Let's try to remove it. Only you can make that decision. Has the same meaning. The sentence is still complete. Yourself only serves to emphasize its antecedent you. Be careful not to use a reflexive pronoun when a personal pronoun should be used. In fact, this is probably more important to know than the distinction between reflexive and intensive pronouns. It would be incorrect to say Sonia and myself sang a duet in the talent show. What is myself referring to? Well, it's probably referring to I, but it's definitely not referring to Sonia. So I cannot use the reflexive form. Instead, I need to use the personal pronoun I. Sonia and I sang a duet in the talent show. In a second example, Chad bought tickets for himself and myself. I've got two pronouns. Himself, object of the preposition for, refers back to Chad. So I have a reflexive pronoun. Myself. Okay, also the object of a preposition, however, what does it refer back to? It probably refers back to I. It definitely doesn't refer back to Chad. Therefore, again, I need to use the personal pronoun. Chad bought tickets for himself and me. At this point, you should pause the video to do the following exercise. When you've finished it, then you should resume playing, and I will go over the answers for you. In this exercise, you are choosing the correct form of the pronoun in parentheses. When possible, draw an arrow from the pronoun to its antecedent. Number 1. My boss invited my wife and me or myself to his house for dinner on Friday. My boss invited my wife and me, or my boss invited my wife and myself. Well, if it's myself, then we have to figure out what the antecedent would be. The antecedent for myself has to be I in this case, and there is no I. Therefore, it has to be me. And there is no antecedent for me. That's why I'm using the personal pronoun form. She asked herself if she would be better off with or without him. In this case, I think we can infer that the writer is saying that she's talking to herself, not another person, because that would lead to pronoun ambiguity. So in this case, herself could in fact be referring back to she logically. It's also functioning as a direct object, therefore I have a reflexive pronoun. John and I or myself can carry most of the equipment. This one's pretty easy. Myself can't be referring to John, so it has to be I, the personal pronoun form. Therefore, there is no antecedent in the sentence. This is a matter that concerns only you and me or myself. Again, if it's myself, we have to find the antecedent, which would need to be me or I, which is not in the sentence. Therefore, the answer has to be me, the personal pronoun form. I didn't do it for you, but for me, myself. Here, because myself does logically refer back to I have a reflexive as it is the object of the preposition for.